Springfield's Talk 1041 and good Thursday morning, friends. Just a day away from kicking off the weekend. Tomorrow's show, live from Scramblers, sponsored by Custom Shade Window Tinting, powered by 3M Window Film. Kamala and old Joe are going to have their first joint appearance today since the Democrats overthrew Joe Biden's election in all 50 states. And whether or not they'll answer questions, whether there'll be an embracing of Bidenomics, which has been so damaging to people, or is it just going to be the standard stuff? Don't ask any questions. Joe Biden maybe yells a little bit. He did that yesterday at an event. They're letting him out a little bit here and there, and most of the events, of course, involve him yelling just either randomly or at the press. Most recently, scolding the press. They were asking him about the economy, and he claims that he's fixed it. So if you didn't realize this, it's all good. Vote for Kamala. If you feel as if everything is back to the way it was 4 or 5 years ago, once again, your buying power is up. Gas prices are around $1 a gallon. Your grocery prices have been slashed by about 40%. This is what Biden says. He was asked, "Did you fix it? You got it all under control?" He's like, "Yes, yes, yes." And you all need to start reporting that. He just really let him know. So will we see that Joe Biden while he and Kamala is out? Meanwhile, China, Iran sending diplomats to Taliban for their big victory parade celebrating the gift of Afghanistan that Joe Biden gave the terrorist organization. They had a big to-do about that. And Hunter Biden, all of a sudden, you got to love some of these stories. CNN, I've got audio. It's hilarious. All of a sudden, CNN describing some of the behavior of Hunter Biden doing favors for friends while his dad was vice president, asking for favors. That all of a sudden, this has shifted from it's simply a dad who loves his son to, yeah, this does just really seem strange. That's unusual that here he is, the son of the vice president, and it's just amazing how we have gone from it is a right-wing conspiracy theory, the Claire McCaskill nut job position, that any criticisms or concerns about that relationship are simply Republicans that are attacking a family that loves each other. Now they're just a little more open to, well, that is strange after all. They've just noticed after a few years that perhaps this is just a little bit off-putting. So we've got quite a bit. Author of the Week coming up also in the 8 o'clock hour, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Traffic, weather, in moments. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory is in effect from noon until 9 p.m. for the entire listening area. Today we will have a chance for showers throughout the day, but otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 95. Heat index values close to 102. Tonight, 60% chance of showers.
Get it out.
I'm trying. It's a lot of weather going on. Tonight, 60% chance of showers with a low around 71. Friday, sunny with a high near 94. And Saturday, sunny with a high near 90.
Right, the traffic that we have, this is an appropriate time to remind you about A1 Custom Car Care as they sponsor the traffic this morning, this upcoming report, that for all of your car care needs, including tires, full service, purchase of tires as well, not just show up, hey, I bought these online, can you put them on for it? You can purchase quality tires as well as, of course, the installation and all tire business with A1 Custom Car Care, so you don't have to go to a separate place in order to have that done now. And all of your needs, whether it is your routine maintenance, your oil changes, your manufactured recommended 77,000 mile checklist, whatever it might be, they can handle it for you. A1 Custom Car Care, all of their location, information you can find at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. Also on YouTube, you can find us there. What is it? 1041 Nick Reed there, or is it Springfield's Talk
I
1041?
think if you type in Springfield's Talk 1041, you'll find us. And then I think our little @ sign is at 1041 KSGF.
And you can see past shows if you like, share stuff if you would like to. But that video feed, obviously along with the audio feed as well, is sponsored by our good friends at Springfield Wraps, who designed the KSGF studio. The Taliban terrorist organization celebrating the third anniversary of the gift of Afghanistan from the Biden administration. You may remember that. That is the event in which, according to Joe Biden, absolutely no U.S. service persons lost their lives, because they never have as long as he's president. He's the only president in modern history who had that occurred. Of course, that's not anywhere close to the truth. There were completely unnecessarily service members, not just at that moment, but during the tenure of Biden thus far, who have lost their lives. And I say unnecessarily because we know, based off of testimony provided before Congress, that they had the ability to take out. We had snipers, one that testified that they saw the bomber and they were told to stand down and not take him out. Another brilliant move by this administration. That just was the cherry on top of the cake called Afghanistan that was gifted to the Taliban. At some point they probably had to think it was a trap, right? Had to think it was a trap. I think this is one of those deals where you hear about some county and the sheriff's department, and they are, if you have an arrest warrant out and you turn yourself in, then they're going to just let you go. It's part of some new program, and then you'll also be registered to win a free boat. And people show up, and of course, then they arrest them and put them in jail. And we all laugh, thinking, how could anyone have been so stupid? The Taliban must have thought this has got to be a trap. 3 years ago, August 15th, the Taliban had to be thinking, are they trying to lure us down out of our hiding spots where we have been all of this time so that they can take us out like fish in a barrel? Surely they're not going to give us the country. But that, in fact, was one of the brilliant policy moves by this administration. August 15th marking that 3 years of betrayal, not just to our allies. While President Biden was out there claiming that all of our allies were supportive, they were going on the record saying, what the hell? You had leaders in France, leaders in England, all throughout Europe. The declaration from England that when it came to military commitment to the United States, as long as Biden's president, no more. You had the French asking, what happened to the adults are back in charge? I mean, these were official statements being made. And that doesn't even mention that just 2 weeks prior, Joe Biden told George Stephanopoulos that we will leave no one behind. Still to this day, countless Americans and Afghanis who risked their lives in order to ally and help us were betrayed and left behind. I'm sure if Kamala Harris becomes commander-in-chief, those decisions will only become even greater. And she will, as commander-in-chief, make us even prouder than Joe Biden has when it comes to these foreign policy decisions. I want to play some audio that, well, incidentally, let's not expect a great amount of coverage from the media campaigning for Kamala Harris on the anniversary of that complete and utter embarrassing debacle. It would be very interesting to see, and maybe one of these organizations will actually do it, a side-by-side comparison, the amount of time devoted by mainstream media outlets on January 6th, the anniversary of January 6th. The amount of time devoted to that, the amount of time showing footage of that, versus how much time they will devote to the Biden administration handing Afghanistan over to the Taliban in such a horrific manner. I think most of us could probably intelligently predict that there's a lot more attention paid to January 6th than August 15th. CNN having a discussion. There have been new developments. All of a sudden, it's just amazing that Hunter Biden, who has never done anything other than love his dad and been the recipient of his father's love, now we're getting these reports that, oh, look, we found out that actually he was trying to get favors based off of the fact that his dad was vice president, favors for people that were paying him. It's just amazing. CNN talking about some of those recent revelations.
I mean, does this play? What does Harris do about this? Anything?
I mean,
it's not Kamala Harris's son, and so there's a little bit more distance than when it was the presidential nominee's son. This isn't great. Hunter Biden, everybody in the White House has known for a long time is an issue. The way that that his lawyers responded to this disclosure, to say like, well, yeah, he sent letters but did nothing wrong. It doesn't. This feels very strange to people that the vice president's son was sending letters or making requests to other government officials and saying, "Hey, would you meet with this company?" It may have been legal. We don't know anything otherwise at this point. Like Matt said, we haven't seen the contents of the letter. It doesn't. It does look like he was at least making people say, "You notice my last name, though, right?"
Yeah. See, it's a sign.
That weird music under it. It's because that audio actually came from a Fox News story that was about the CNN coverage there, and so they had that weird music bed under it. Isn't that remarkable? It's like the shift of Joe Biden is perfectly fine, fit as a fiddle, to, well, it does appear something's wrong with him. Oh. The shift from Kamala Harris is the worst vice president ever, Joe Biden should drop her because he could potentially lose because of her, to she's the most inspirational figure, she's transformative, and God bless the USA, we're all going to be saved because she's such an amazing woman. Hunter Biden, he's simply a guy who just loves his dad loves him, this is just family. That's a big theme of this administration. Family, just helping each other, loving each other, that's all. There's absolutely nothing here whatsoever to see. And all of a sudden, well, yeah, I guess that does look a little bit suspicious here. I mean, after all, even though we don't know the contents of the letter, still, the fact of the matter is that he is the vice president's son at the time. He's got the same last name, and he's, utilizing that to his favor. That is a far cry from, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence. It is instinctual to try and figure out what's the motivation here. All right, well, what's the plan? Why now are they willing to report on? Why now is even the government that has long run cover for and protected Biden's candidacy when he was first running and the presidency from being held accountable for any of these millions and millions of dollars flowing from other countries in order to buy access to Joe Biden? Why now? What is their goal? He's on his way out. Are they trying to get him out early? What purpose does that serve? I think that it may be more simple than that and less nefarious. I think they just don't have to cover for him anymore. At some point, that can become a very exhausting thing. At some point, you get tired. Your goal, of course, is to save that candidacy at the time. It is to get Joe Biden elected. Then it is to keep him in the White House, keep cover for him, keep cover for Hunter Biden. And at some point, that gets very tiring. And if you don't have to do it anymore, and we know over the years, because of FBI whistleblowers within the IRS, all these different divisions that had investigatory power, that there were a lot of these individuals, many of which would become whistleblowers, that were trying to do their job, but they were stopped from the higher up. And so the higher ups, that were the decision makers, were the ones that were putting a stop to it and getting called out for it. And so that probably isn't a fun thing to have to do all of the time. Constantly having to deal with that sort of scrutiny. So the time comes when you've got some of these investigations, they're still ongoing, and you do have lower-level people involved in the investigation that have genuinely been trying to do things by the book with politics detached from it. They're continuing to do it, and if you are that mid to upper level person that has long been running interference for the Bidens, for the Democrats, in order to protect them, and you just don't have to do it any longer, it may just be as simple as, thank God I don't have to play interference anymore for these folks. I don't have to play defense. I don't have to be the gatekeeper that constantly swats down legitimate evidence and legitimate investigations against these people. So as there is increasing evidence coming, and by the way, also we've got this coming up, stuff regarding the investigation into Joe Biden himself and classified information. It's amazing. They found some transcripts from that recently as well. That's been revealed. All of a sudden, they're finding this stuff that they've long claimed either did not exist or was part of a conspiracy theory. And I don't believe it is part of any necessarily overt effort to do anything other than it's probably just the people who have long been responsible for keeping this stuff from moving forward. They no longer have to worry about keeping this stuff from moving forward. And so they're like, thank goodness. Go ahead, do what you want. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com. In addition to these letters that have popped up, the recognition by the federal government that Hunter Biden was, in fact, trying to buy influence using his father's name and arranging for access to people within the Biden world so that they could get their money's worth, the millions and millions of dollars that wasn't just going to Hunter Biden, but we know all of these different bank accounts, and it didn't go directly to the bank accounts, of course. These shell companies were set up to go there first and then to go to the bank accounts of over a dozen Biden family members, and we've been told all this time that was perfectly, who doesn't do that? I mean, really, everyone does that, right? Everyone, for absolutely no reason whatsoever, sets up dozens of LLCs and then dozens of bank accounts under the names of family members and then have millions of dollars flow from people who benefit from relationships with those in government to the LLCs, then to the bank accounts. Oh, and by the way, what was the money for? We don't really know. We can't say. That's perfectly normal, and that's what we've been told all this time. Well, now we're being told maybe it's not so normal. In addition to that, the DOJ suddenly located Biden biographer transcripts created by Robert Hur, which they had claimed didn't exist. Oh, whoa. During an ongoing lawsuit aimed at forcing the Justice Department to produce records from special counsel Robert Hur's probe into Joe Biden's handling of classified documents before being elected president, the DOJ revealed the discovery. They just found them. Oh, look at this. Hey, does anybody know what these 117 pages are? I just found this. I was just in the bathroom looking for something to read. I'm like, this is incoherent. This doesn't make sense. It's gibberish. And then I read, oh, no, wait. Here's Robert Hur. Who's this other guy? Oh, this is Biden. Okay, now I get it. Now I understand why I was confused. It didn't make any sense. There's 117 pages of transcripts of that were created by Robert Hur, actually, and it's between Biden and the biographer. And the reason this is significant is because it reveals that Biden was sharing illegally classified information with his biographer. This is largely one of the reasons that the desire to have the audio, because of the desire to see what information was on there, because the White House admitted that they requested the transcripts that were turned over be edited, and they were edited at their behest. So there was a desire to find out, all right, what did we not hear? What did we not see? The find of the 117 pages of transcribed discussions between the president and his ghostwriter, wasn't his biographer, sorry, ghostwriter. The find was highlighted Wednesday by the Oversight Project, a government transparency watchdog that has sued Biden's DOJ. The ghostwriter, Mark Zwanitzer, was previously subject to a March subpoena for the House Judiciary Committee, which sought any and all documents, contracts, and recordings of interviews and conversations with Biden. However, Oversight Project counsel Kyle Bronson said on Wednesday this particular revelation is both new and further animates the need for transparency in regard to questions about Biden's competency. By the way, much like Merrick Garland, his ghostwriter just completely defied the subpoena, because if you're a Republican, as we have seen over the past several years, you defy a subpoena, you go to prison. If you are a Democrat or you are protecting Democrats, have a nice day. Bronson noted that just prior to the Oversight Project's last hearing on the matter, the Justice Department admitted to the court that it actually did have the transcripts. The memoir that was being written by the ghostwriter was titled Promise Me, Dad, and was released in 2017. This was a title based off of Joe Biden's attempt to use his son's death as justification for running for president of the United States. He was trying to set up the American Idol style, the American Idol, or X Factor, any of these different shows. Every episode, somebody that comes along that they realize is going to be long term in the show. They have that background story, and it's always, oh well, my mother died, and I'm doing this for her. Her last wish was for me to make it big in the music scene, and so I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for her, and that's what Joe Biden was attempting to do, claiming that his final wish, his final words. Beau Biden, who, depending on who you're listening to, either died in Iraq or died of cancer, had told Joe, promise me, Dad, you'll do this thing. You'll run for president. And now, despite the fact that the Biden administration claimed that these transcripts did not exist, there's an admission that, yes, actually they do exist after all. 117 pages, and we know this because we just found them. This is reminiscent. Some of you will remember the Whitewater documents, when there were subpoenas regarding the Whitewater scandal during the Clinton administration, and, we just can't find documents, can't find them. And then one day, when it became largely irrelevant, somebody found them. They were on a table. They were just laying on a table in the White House somewhere. They just found them. No one knows how they got there. No one knows where they were. This is a tactic that Democrats have long learned that they can successfully use. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. We have a heat advisory in effect from noon until 9 p.m. for the entire listening area. Today we do have a chance for showers throughout the day, but otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 95. Heat index values reaching close to 102. Tonight, a 60% chance of showers with a low around 71. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 94, and on Saturday, sunny with a high near 90.
Andrew McCarthy has a piece out that is predicting Trump on September 18th is going to be sentenced to prison. This is something that's been largely off the radar for a number of reasons. One, because it backfired tremendously on the Democrats. The assassination attempt on Trump, the Democrats' overthrowing of the nomination process election in all 50 states, and then, of course, rigging the DNC vote so that nobody could challenge their pick of Kamala Harris at the actual convention by doing a virtual vote ahead of time. And so all of those things have taken focus off of these court cases. And Andrew McCarthy is noting that Judge Merchan, Merkin, left-wing anti-Trumper, has yet again denied former President Trump's motion that the judge recuse himself. This isn't the first time, of course, he's denied the motion. And McCarthy notes that the judge has signaled, come hell or high water, he intends to rush this as quickly as possible to sentence Trump on September 18th, which is 2 days after early voting in the 2024 election begins, in Pennsylvania specifically. And the piece, we'll get it posted so you can read through it. He talks about what the defense team, the Trump defense team, and how they've been trying to stave off sentencing, which, of course, I mean, anyone and everyone who faces any sort of, they're being prosecuted for something, you always appeal. You try to get as much time as possible. The media acts as if this is some sort of evil tactic, nefarious for political purposes being used by Trump, as if normally people, when they have the opportunity to appeal things, they go, no, that's all right. Whatever the prosecution wants to do with me, that's just fine. Let's go ahead and get this over with. And some of what McCarthy notes is that the Supreme Court decision that noted that you cannot take away presidential immunity. It's something that presidents have had within the confines of their presidential powers. This wasn't something that the Supreme Court gave to presidents, wasn't something that they gave to President Donald Trump. This was something that the Biden administration was trying to strip away, to change the entire makeup of how the relationship works between the president, the other branches, and whether or not the president, for doing his job or her job, can be prosecuted for it. And they wanted to change that. The Supreme Court said, no, you can't change that. If you feel that the president did something illegally or illegal outside of his or her official duties, well, sure, you can move forward with a case with that. But if the president's doing his or her job, you can't prosecute him for that. Also, the court instructed that the immunity extends not only to the charges, but to the evidence itself. And this is where there has been a real problem with Jack Smith, and many people wondering why, because Jack Smith, all of a sudden, who is one of those trying to imprison Trump, he was asking for extensions in his case against Trump, and people are like, well, why? He's been trying to ram this through, and it's been noted, well, it throws his entire case into chaos because much of the evidence that he is relying on is evidence that the Supreme Court said is illegal to use. You cannot use that as evidence. Now, again, the piece that Andy McCarthy writes out, it's very informative. And if you want to know where things stand, I suggest that you read through it. But the point that I wanted to make, and I could be wrong about this, I think that politically speaking, this is good for Trump. I think that there could be nothing better for Trump, politically speaking, than to be sentenced to prison. This seems to be some of these experts, even the experts that are really on point and intelligent and observant and unbiased, can oftentimes, because they're in the Washington D.C. bubble, the Beltway bubble, or the Rust Belt, or the Beltway bubble, they forget the atmosphere that existed just months ago, and they forget that every step of the way that Democrats got a couple steps forward in prosecuting Trump, in convicting Trump, in potentially imprisoning Trump, all it did was rally people around him. And it also demonstrated the hypocrisy of the administration claiming that Trump is the danger to democracy that's going to imprison political opposition when they're actively trying to do it. And this is something that some Democrats, they still present it this way. The Harris-Walz campaign, the Trump danger to democracy, is going to go after political opposition. Well, when they're out there saying that, and in the meantime, you have them at the same time bragging about making Trump a felon. Sure, the left-wing nut jobs that are totalitarian, they love that. But those people that we see swaying a little bit, the people that, some of them that, you got Trump up by this much and all of a sudden it's a dead heat because some of these have gone over to Kamala, or they were RFK Jr. Voters and they thought, well, maybe Kamala's a little different too. She's not part of all this mess. That is not going to help. I don't believe her campaign, and I think it's once again going to rally people around Trump. I could be wrong on this, but I suspect that I'm not. And it was a different context when Trump was benefiting politically from the government trying to imprison him for being political opposition. Biden was Biden was sort of the figurehead of all that. And even though he's not really connected to it, he's not the one the media kept covering for him, pretending that there was absolutely no connection whatsoever. It still benefited Trump. Kamala, the media, of course, has spent the last few weeks campaigning for her and attempting to craft her as some brand new person that has never existed and has no connection to the Biden administration. So arguably, while you do get a number of people in the population that will rally around Trump because they don't like that he's being targeted for being political opposition, does that mean that the blame will fall on Harris? That is yet to be seen. But I do believe they will make the mistake. And this is what many people believe. The reason that the judge is wanting to sentence him is because the Democrats have realized simply being able to call him a felon isn't working. That was their goal. Their goal was to, as quickly as possible before the election, to get that label on him. And Kamala could go out. Well, it was going to be Biden at the time, but the Kamala pitch is, hey, I've been a prosecutor. I know what these felons are all about, and it's not working. Again, I think it's not working because people don't really like somebody who wants to be president of the United States bragging about being the sort of person that puts political opposition in prison. So, recognizing that the label of felon wasn't hurting Trump, I believe they can't help themselves and think, okay, well then if we can say that, a felon who's been sentenced to prison, if we can add that on to the end, then that's the thing that's going to just put the nail in his coffin. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that it will, in all likelihood, not guaranteed, work against them even worse for the Democrats than labeling him as a felon, because it's like, how far are you going to go? You're really going to start imprisoning political opposition. You're not just pretending like you're going to do it. You're not just going through the motions here in order to make them look bad. This is really what Democrats have turned this country into. Now, it's not good for the country. None of what they've been doing is. I mean, this is, we're beyond Venezuela-style corruption at this point. But politically speaking, I believe that sentencing and if there is a prison term attached to it, that's going to be a positive for the Trump campaign. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. There was a nice little cozy. Where was this? Was this New York? Yeah, it was a Kamala event. I don't know that this one was public. There were no questions publicly asked, no publicly answered questions, no sit down with reporters, but nonetheless. So it was a nice little event, and afterwards, Kamala's crew all got together, and this is a common thing. You find a campaign friendly place that lets you have a little post event party, and you get together, you sort of unwind for the night. And some of the voters that Kamala has been desperately trying to cater to were kind enough to show up at the event. Now this goes on for some time. It began inside. They infiltrated the restaurant / bar that the Harris campaign was in, and then of course outside got into fights with police and everything. And
I think they had to show their photo IDs.
Yeah, right.
To attend that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe that's why they weren't let in. They had to force their way in. Yeah, I guess skipping over the Jewish possibility. Old Shapiro there in Pennsylvania and picking Walz, which has been a big supporter of anti-Semites, called a master of teaching, an individual imam who teaches and preaches the virtues of Hitler. I mean, talk about going from one extreme to the other. Someone who praises teachers of Hitler. Tim Walz is on video doing it, on record. They tried to deny it, of course, but this is the problem with not ever believing you would be. Because, Tim Walz, probably in his mind, never really thought he would be potentially headed to the White House. I'm sure everyone who's a guy, they sort of have these pipe dreams and, I'd be great. And people telling them, oh, you really should run for president and so forth. But you're not behaving when you're governor or when you're a member of Congress as if, I'm going to be running for president one day, so I need to not, hang out with pro-Hitler people. I probably ought not talk and gush on camera while introducing an imam who posts Hitler, pro-Hitler information and, talks about killing Jews and everything. I probably should not introduce this person as someone that after all of my time spent with them, I've learned as a teacher is a master teacher. This is what he said. We played the audio yesterday. You think about to what extremes the Democrat Party has gone with Kamala, bowing to these people, letting them choose the direction of our country by way of choosing her ticket. They made it very clear, no Jews. She did them one better. I'll find the governor that I can link to the most anti-Semitic, pro-Hitler hate rhetoric possible, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota. And still, they're not happy. They are still showing up at these, and this wasn't some public event. They evidently found out about it somehow, and so they made their way into this restaurant where the Harris campaign, and I don't know that Kamala Harris was there. I don't think she was there, but I think it was, people from the area and those who worked on the campaign and so forth getting together afterwards. I'm sure if she was there, they got her out the back door very, very quickly. But to go to all that effort to try to win these people over, and this is the reward. You would think, recognizing how the people with this ideology behave here in the United States, that you would get at least a sliver of insight into how people with that same ideology are going to respond to your overtures in the Middle East. In other words, these people will never, ever, ever be happy until there are no Jews left. These people will never, there is no two-state solution. They don't want a two-state solution. They do not want to live peacefully, coexist with Jewish people. And make no mistake about it, if they were in their wildest dreams ever to get rid of Israel, ever to eliminate this world of all Jews, they would find somebody else. Christians would probably be next. Or the LGBT community, or both, who knows? They're not overly fond of either of those, particularly the LGBT community. But the big focus right now is to destroy the Jews. You cannot placate these people. Whether it is in the Middle East, or it is here in the United States of America. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Wilder RV, in addition to RVs, full spectrum of repairs. Whether it's overall maintenance, maybe you've not had it out in a year, 2 years, 3 years. Maybe you have, but you just haven't. You tinkered with something here. You wait till something breaks and then you fix it. Most of you who listen to this show are relatively wise with your money. And that means when you have an investment in something, although it may not be the most fun thing to do to spend a little extra money here and there in order to make sure you extend the life and quality of that product, whether it's your home or your vehicle, you do it because you recognize you're a long-term thinker and you recognize the value in doing that. Instead of going out and blowing it on something fun in the moment, you take care of your investments. And RVs are the same way. And if you're going to have that done, I cannot recommend enough Wilder RV. Whether it is the general maintenance like roof conditioning, I know particularly maybe you don't have the infrastructure to keep yours housed indoors. And so, the weathering through the winter and just even being out in the sun all the time, that can be very, very hard on an RV, and that general maintenance can keep you ahead of the curve on that stuff. Or appliance parts, hitches, any sort of accessories as well. And they do have free on-site sewer dump and offer propane bottle refills as well. Wilder RV, that is Clinton, Missouri, just over an hour north on 13, and you can find them at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. At ksgf.com also, you can go ahead as we speak and get for $25, $50 ticket to PBR Thunder Days, Friday, August 30th. Section DD, rows 12 through 15. That is under the Local for Less Ozarks section. And again, you don't have to wait till Friday in order to do that. That is live now. We've got Christy Fulnecki in the upcoming hour. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I am Nick Reed. All of your home loan needs, I want a great homeloan.com, easy to remember. But if you do forget, fear not. You can remember KSGF.com. Nick's endorsements go there, and that is your portal to all your home loan needs, your refinancing needs, and many of you're like, hey, listen, I've had a home loan in the past. I got a car loan right now. I do it all with my bank. Listen, it does no harm whatsoever to go ahead after you find out here's what your bank can do for you. These are the rates. These are the terms. Go to iwantagreathomeloan.com. Somebody from the Carricker team, they're going to get back with you as soon as you fill out some basic info, and then you can find out what they can do for you. And you may say, you know what? Nope, I think I'm going to stick with where I am. Totally cool. At least then you're making a more educated choice based off of other options that are out there. And you never know. You may find that it works in your favor. That's iwantagreathomeloan.com because you do. And Christy Fulnecki's here. Yes.
It is
yeah.
me. Good
It
morning.
is
Good morning.
You,
Yes.
after the show last Thursday, headed off to Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Which, by the way, has been rated as the
No,
most miserable city to live
Hey,
in.
I could have told you that.
Yeah.
Yes, it is not. I'm telling you, well, it depends on what, how you measure happiness. So, I mean, drug dealers on every corner, and they still have the whole gate around the Capitol. So,
Well, that must be why it costs so much to live there, because you have all of the niceties of drug dealers and homeless people and, hypodermic needles, whatever is laying around. Like, now this is worth paying for.
yeah. And it's always been bad, to tell you the truth. I don't remember. I mean, you have Mayor Barry and all these other
Oh, yeah,
people, so
Marion.
it's never been great. But I will say, I do want to mention my trip. I had such a great time seeing my daughter at the Naval Academy. So just for you folks out there, I know school's starting. If you look at the news and you see these kids and these university protests, there are a lot of great kids out there. I just want to tell you. I mean, and I saw them at the Naval Academy with my daughter, and there are still people that want to serve the country. There's still people that care about other people and sense of community, and it really inspires you, and you really want to go work out after you watch that. So I know. I mean, that's what I was just telling you, that
I'm going to go buy some celery and walk around a lot.
I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect, and they said, "Oh, they're going to be, having their morning workout," and I mean, it was 6 a.m. to 7:30 nonstop, and I thought, I can't believe this. And then that's, you saw the guy that's in the Marine Corps that led the, it's called PEP, PEP. I don't know, there's so many acronyms, I can't remember what it stands for. But anyway, it was hard. He was up there on this platform, and I looked at him, I thought, he looks older than I am. And I asked my daughter, she's like, oh, he's in his 60s. And he was running circles around those kids. I said, you know what? There's no excuse for any of us. This guy is in great shape.
I don't need an excuse. I'm fine with the way I am. I don't feel the need to excuse it.
She was in her navy whites, because that's the second.
I saw
time
the
she had
pics
worn
that
it.
you guys posted.
It
looked
so I'm
nice.
really proud of her. It's so intense. I mean, it's just really, but I mean, these are gonna be the leaders in the military. So, yeah, but it's really good, and it's just amazing to see the whole process and the training. But that's what I was saying earlier. You look, it's just frustrating. And Sarah and I have talked about this with her husband, that the families of the people in the military, you see the training, you see what they go through day in and day out, and the sacrifice, and then you look at the political appointees and our president who can't walk up the stairs, and you think something is wrong with this country. I mean, if the president can't jog and walk, and I'm watching my kid about to collapse after working the whole entire day.
So you mean it doesn't make you feel better that a woman who can't even do an interview with the press that's trying to get her elected, running the military in terms of potential conflicts with the world?
So terrible. But I mean, like the superintendent in charge of the Naval Academy, Admiral, I can't think of her name, but she is so articulate, very down to earth, such a good speaker. And I was actually thinking about that, thinking, is this the only person that we could come up with as a woman, as a female? Is Kamala, that she is the only person that we have? Like,
that to me is what's sad. Like,
insulting, because there's so many qualified women
totally agree.
that could speak, that can, go out and talk to the press, and this is all we have for America.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pathetic.
I mean, you would like to see, if anything, just for the sake of pride, whomever the first woman president is, one that you could have this amazing biography and look all of these accomplishments that she's had. But even, again, her own supporters, we played audio of Newsmax outside her supporters after she was at a rally in Nevada, and none of them could even say why they were voting for her, or what. A couple were like unity, but none of them could say what her accomplishments were, or what they would be asked, well, what platform of hers, if she becomes president, what is it that you see as important or significant? No, then nobody even knew. And like, so that's really the person you want to be the first woman president. That's the story that's going to lead up to that, is like, well, there's that Willie Brown thing. I mean,
there's nothing to admire about her, and to have girls look up to her. I mean, there is no way my kids would ever look up to her at all. When my daughter was working around, she had, when they came off the yard, younger girls walking up to her, and they were like touching her uniform and stuff. And I thought,
neat.
yeah, it was really neat. And somebody made a comment on social media that, oh, she's going to be a role model for other girls that are going to, go to the academies and do all these things. And so it's really great. But you think in terms of just role models in our country, and I mean, it's just totally pathetic. And just the training and the thing that I don't understand too is, how did she pass a bar? I mean, how is she attorney general of a state? I mean, to me,
well,
it's just
the
like,
elected stuff, I get. It makes sense. Willie Brown got her in.
Yeah, right.
He ran her to, a lot of people think, well, it was just about sex, and he was doing her a favor in exchange for her being his side piece. But the guy that was, she was in the DA's office, and she got passed over for promotion. So Willie Brown was like, all right, we're going to run you against that guy that didn't promote you. Well, that DA also was currently prosecuting a number of Willie Brown's friends for corruption and donors. And as soon as Kamala, who was in third place at the time because she wasn't well respected, but Willie Brown was a kingmaker in that area during that period of time by his own acknowledgement, and he got her what she needed in order to win, and she immediately stopped or just ended most of those prosecutions, and then one she let the guy plead down to. So it was more than just sex. It was total, complete corruption. But then once you're in as a Democrat, you're in. There's no real opposition for you. You get, if the party apparatus decides, okay, who's going to be in, and Willie Brown in his part decided she was going to be in, and so she was in. That's just the way that it works. And so that's the elected. Now the bar part I can't speak to because I didn't even finish college. So Christy Fulnecki is with us.
Well, so far
we got a weather update, traffic as well. Right now, latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. A heat advisory is in effect from noon until 9 p.m. for the entire listening area today. And we do have a chance for showers throughout the day, but otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 95. Heat index values close to 102. Tonight, 60% chance of showers with a low around 71. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 94. And on Saturday, sunny with a high near 90.
Chrissy Fulnecki with us now.
Yes.
Here's a nice little story.
Oh, good.
So the left-wing activists have taken the opportunity of the 10th anniversary of Michael Brown. This is in Ferguson. Michael Brown, who had physically assaulted and robbed that store. And then when law enforcement tried to question him about it, he tried to steal the police officer's gun. Struggling, he reached into the squad car, and then when he failed to get it, he started to run. When the officer got out, he turned around and charged him, and that's when he shot him. Which is a little more, it gives a little more truth to what actually happened as opposed to an unarmed black man getting shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of a different.
Which that's what we heard right after it happened. Yeah.
So 10 years later, and instead of some sort of peaceful coming together candlelight vigil, of course, here's an opportunity for left-wing activists to destroy things, to break things, and in doing so, there was a police officer that was hospitalized in critical condition, and the individual who did it, this is also perfect, Keith Rose, who was an alternate delegate to the DNC.
Oh my gosh.
Hospitalized police officer. The Missouri Democratic Party said in a statement, Keith Rose has decided to voluntarily withdraw as an uncommitted alternate delegate to the DNC. Like, they're really downplaying it. Like, that makes it okay. Well, sure, he hospitalized a police officer, but he was an uncommitted delegate anyhow. To add to it, Keith Rose, the Democrat delegate who hospitalized a police officer, is white, and the police officer is black.
Oh, really?
So evidently, in the world of the Democrats, it's all right to beat down and hospitalize a black man as long as you're a Democrat who's white. That apparently, it just brings back the old days.
Yeah, right. Was this in Ferguson that they did this?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Do you have the audio from the police chief?
No, I do not.
Did you see his statement? It
no.
was really good. I think Red State had it. I'll see if I can find it.
Oh,
for
yeah.
you.
I'd like to hear that. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. Well, and it's the hypocrisy. Can you? I mean,
where's
we
the
always
media?
play. We always play the
where's
"Can
the
you
media?
imagine?" But in reality, if some RNC delegate who is white
Oh,
hospitalized
man.
a black
Oh,
police officer by beating him, I mean, they would go nuts, and it would be once again a sign of racism in the Republican Party, and it's emblematic of the Trump message, and this is how you deal with people, and it's so divisive. But when a Democrat does it, it's no big deal. It's just another police officer.
Yeah. And
He probably had it coming.
And what are these people thinking when they go to burn things down? I mean, I don't understand that. Like, not only do the Democrats support criminals, but are these criminals part of their party that are out there? I mean, is this your hope and change, or what is it, joy and hope, whatever the message? I don't even know what the message of Kamala is, but I mean, it's not very joyful.
I think
You're
unity,
burning
maybe.
cities to the ground.
Unity.
Well, I guess that's how you solve problems.
So anyway, we shouldn't expect to see a great deal of attention paid to this. I don't know that BLM, if
That's
they've made any
crazy.
sort of statements. I don't. Evidently, Black lives don't always matter, as long as it's a white Democrat alternate delegate that is hospitalizing the black man. Those Black lives don't matter. Hey, listen.
He's still part of their party, though, whether he's an alternate or not.
I mean, has the media reached out to Crystal Quaid? She's essentially the
just
head of the
thinking about
Democrat
that.
Party, and she also went to court to kick a black man off the ballot. So
Yeah.
she has some experience in these sort of conflicts with black people. But yeah, where's the media asking the Democrat Party their statements on this? Asking whether or not the anti-police rhetoric of the Democrat Party has any hand in this sort of behavior, what it says about the Democrat Party that they would entrust an alternate delegate, credibility and authority to someone who clearly has such a hatred for black people, namely, and then police that they would attack them in such a manner. But you get a big old free pass if you're a Democrat.
I mean, it's more like, let's just burn our cities to the ground. I don't even know if they're even running on that platform. So
Kamala. Oh,
that's
yeah.
funny. I mean, even at the state level,
Well, they're
like, how are you going to explain this? Oh, that's an alternate. Well, that's not really an explanation.
they're running on killing babies. That's their big
Yeah,
thing.
that's true.
Our author of the week we've got coming up in the next hour.
Oh,
And she's got a book. It's about Trump and his personality. She's a historian and she spent 4 years researching and it's an interesting book because she found as she was just a lot of it, even circumstances. There were a lot of similarities to Lincoln, the circumstances themselves. And one that she noted is that Lincoln, he had the issue of slavery, in which he was really battling the Democrats over, and Trump, abortion. That he and
that's
of
right.
these moments in time that. And the positioning's the same. The Democrats back then, they're black people. They're property. Keep your hands off my property.
Yeah.
It's my, it was a property rights thing. Now it's, keep your hands off my body, even though it's not your body. It's another human being.
Yeah.
But it's the exact same argument, the same philosophy, and it's the same political party. But that'll be coming up in the upcoming hour.
Like I've always said, it's a culture of death, and they don't respect people. They don't respect kids.
But that's
They don't
what they're running
respect
on.
life. They don't respect life. I mean, allow kids to mutilate themselves. I mean, they don't respect anything about that. That author of the week you had last week, I mean, I can't remember her name, but that had written the book about the detransitioning the kids and their surgeries. That
I know.
I could hardly even listen to that.
I know.
I mean, that was very overwhelming.
Well, there is. Let's see if America. So this is an interesting story on that. Before we go to a quick break here, American Society of Plastic Surgeons has broken away from those in the medical establishment that continue to lure kids into sex change operations, and so you've got this American Society of Plastic Surgeons, which they said it represents a pretty 92% of all board certified.
At least you have some special saying something.
So there was who is this person? It was noted, quote, "It's somewhat unexpected that the plastic surgeons of all people would be the ones to stand up for evidence-based medicine and to say we have to be more careful and not just give people what they want, because plastic surgeons have the opposite reputation, and they do. Generally you think of them as what's not really medically based, it's cosmetically based. And so the notation that here they are the ones that are standing up for reason and for the patients and getting us more in line with everyone else in the world. But this is still the sickness that is the Democrat Party. Fortunately, new polling shows that a majority of people are against sex change operations for kids. And that is very important to remember, because the way that the Harris-Walz campaign describes it, you are an extremist if you're against that. Well, they're in the minority on this issue, and I don't think people should forget that. Christy Fulnecki with us, more coming up.
Abuse.
Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. We're going to play some audio. The police chief in St. Louis regards to a delegate to the Democratic National Convention, which the DNC points out, well, he's just an alternate. He was an alternate delegate. White guy who attacked a black police officer who is now fighting for his life. Here is the police chief of St. Louis.
This police department, this Ferguson Police Department, since 2014, has been a punching bag for this community. The police department back in 2014, we don't even have them officers here anymore. So what are you protesting? These officers not even here no more. Everything that the activist community has advocated for, as far as body-worn cameras, implicit bias training, crisis intervention training, all this stuff, we have done all of this. What are we protesting? What is it? We even changed the uniforms at this police department because people said that the old uniforms trigger people. What are we doing? 10 years later, I got an officer fighting for his life. It's enough, and I'm done with it. We're not doing it here in Ferguson. Our community is united behind us. Our community is fed up. We want to heal. Our community want to heal. We want people to peacefully protest, but we damn sure ain't going to allow you to destroy this city, and we ain't going to allow you to hurt none of these police officers. We are united here in this city. We're done with it. We're not doing it anymore.
Now, that
Wow, that
may
was
be his
good.
perspective. The problem, though, is the prosecutor's offices. That's where the
Yeah,
problem
right.
lies. Because these, and law enforcement may feel that way, the community may feel that way, but you get these George Soros prosecutors in there, and they don't give these people any sort of meaningful time, and they know it. So this is part of the reason that the problem continues. This is also, he's pointing out, we did all of these things that you demanded. So what are you doing? This is why you do not
That was really
negotiate
good.
with people who terrorize you. Because there is never enough. And I will use the term terrorist because you're talking about terrorizing, and that's what these people do to these communities, these BLM or Antifa, these different protesters. Nothing is ever enough for them. And they make these demands, and you see, another example, that the Harris, she bends a knee to them and agrees not to pick the Jewish governor as her running mate. She picks the most anti-Semitic governor she can find. That's Tim Walz. And they're still protesting at her events. Nothing is ever good enough for these people. And so what needs to happen in communities like St. Louis is they need to stop looking to these protesters for answers and saying, why do you keep doing this when we complied with what you wanted? And start looking at themselves saying, why do you keep giving them what they want when they are not going to change their ways?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like with bullies. I mean, you don't defeat a bully by giving them what they want. I mean, you have to fight him. He has to put these people in jail. I mean, I wish more police chiefs would say what this guy's saying.
Well, and they need to come out against the prosecutors, is what they have to start doing.
The mayors and the city councils of these cities, because a lot of times they won't have enough, authorized force. They don't give them what they want. They will tell them to stand down or,
well, of course,
give them orders.
Because there's the problem. They're Democrats.
Yeah, right.
These are left-wingers.
Yeah.
The people who are elected, St. Louis elects the people who do this.
And then you have the political, the elected class that are telling them what to do. But it has to get bad in cities when you have police chiefs coming up and standing up for the community. I mean, because that's, a risk to your job.
Yes, it is.
So you really know that things are bad. And I'm sure that, the inner city population, the people that live there, they're just tired of it. I mean, you see all these pictures.
And the other part of this, again, that's just wrong to me, because this is it's not political. It is political.
Yeah, right.
The Democrat Party rode the wave of BLM and Antifa riots and Black Lives Matter. Kamala Harris was there bailing these people out. Tim Walz, when he was governor of Minnesota, allowed them to overrun the city, to burn tremendous areas of the city. Some of the prosecutors have come out saying he let them get away with it. He was allowing them to do this. So it is political, because the Democrat Party has made this something that's relevant and a powerful tool, because they give them what they want in exchange for it. We've got to get a traffic update.
Okay.
We'll continue on with Christy Fulnecki here. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
Fields Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory is in effect from noon until 9 p.m. for the entire listening area today, and we do have a chance for showers throughout the day, but otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 95. Heat index values close to 102. Tonight, a 60% chance of showers with a low around 71. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 94, and on Saturday, sunny with a high near 90.
Yeah.
I was going to say one more thing
Yeah.
about what we were talking about the inner cities. I think that, Trump is definitely with enterprise zones and other things that actually Jack Kemp started, the opportunity zones and enterprise zones in cities. Besides that, this whole thing on burning the cities down and violence is only going to help Trump. Because, like I said, if you have a police chief that's politically appointed in these cities and that they're starting to speak out, that this is really bad. And, it's frustrating because when you're in those positions, whether it be the military or the police, you can't speak your mind or your opinion usually. Right. And so for them to come out and say that, I'm sure their families are tired of it.
Well, and it puts their lives in danger.
Yeah.
Because I'm
So
sure
it's like enough is enough.
Well, I'm sure what he recognizes here is he has one of his police officers that is fighting for his life in a hospital right now with a family, and it's because of the atmosphere that these political people have created and continue to foster, and so you're talking life and death here. It's not just about making the job more difficult.
No, if the media, I can't remember whatever their NBC affiliate, did they put the two pictures of the Democrat delegate and then the police officer that's in the hospital?
I doubt they even mentioned he was a Democrat delegate. I'm sure they didn't mention that. I'm sure that, or if they did, they certainly didn't note a white man and a black person. They only do that when they feel like it can be used to benefit. It can benefit the Democrat Party or be harmful against Republicans or be harmful against cops. That's the only. But it's that way with everything. Police officers themselves. When was the only time you've ever heard the injury of a police officer be something that Democrats talked about? And it was January 6th because they could use it to attack their opposition. Meanwhile, their own delegates are out there hospitalizing police officers and not a peep about it, other than, well, no, he was an alternate. He wasn't actually a real delegate. We only made him an alternate delegate. They don't care. Every human being that exists in every cause is only a means to an end to power, and they will flip on it on a dime. That's how this has gone from a party that claimed to be the party of women to one in which it's telling women, we will support men beating you up in the ring. We'll support men taking showers with you and you having no choice. We will support men taking away scholarships from you. They'll just, on a dime, if they believe it will help them politically. Everyone is disposable to them. Yeah. And every cause is disposable to them. I have audio of an influencer that posted yesterday. This is a gal by the name of Lauren Mochin, and she's evidently pretty popular.
To you.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Well, here's a posting she made recently.
And the campaign's being AI and what to believe and what not to believe. Just the other day, I received an email for a paid promotion, for me to make a video and post it on TikTok talking about the Democratic side. At the end of this email, it says, if you want to get things going, we'll send over an NDA for you to sign and we'll get started. I know a lot of people get their views and their opinions and their beliefs based off of what their favorite influencers are saying. Just know they might have been paid to say the things they're saying.
She's not the first individual. I mean, there are many influencers. In fact, this particular story notes that an Arizona Republican by the name of Jake Hoffman handed over an email from an agency that had offered to pay an influencer as well. So everything about this campaign, it is almost as if this is a movie script.
I know, that's
well,
right.
Well, really, you think about it. You have a country with the tradition of two main political parties and a process of each political party spending months and actually years ahead of time laying out groundwork, going to every state, asking for votes for the nomination, then having the delegates cast the vote at these conventions, and then you have the two face off against one another based off ideas. Well, now it's somebody decided to write a movie like, well, what if instead of that, we had one person running, by the way, we're trying to throw him in prison,
Yeah.
Then, after we rig the nomination
Yeah,
process
right.
in order to get the incumbent the
After we cheat,
nomination,
and then
then we decide, because the polls say that he can't win, we're going to overturn those elections. We're going to tell Democrat voters this is now who you're going to support, and we're going to not even let anyone challenge her by having the delegation process play out and instead doing a virtual delegation roll call ahead of the convention. And then we're going to have the media run the campaign for her.
Yeah, right.
We aren't going to have her do any press conferences. We're not going to have her give any platform ideas, also just for fun. Every single major policy position she's ever had, we're going to send surrogates out to claim, no, she believes the opposite now, whether it's fracking, the border, Medicare, single-payer insurance, funding the police, defunding the police, illegal immigrants getting free medical care from the taxpayers. All of these are just issues off the top of my head that she has an opposite position on. That we're going to do all this, and then, by the way, we're going to pay celebrities and influencers to pretend to like her. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me where we are, and there are people that are like, that works for me.
I know, but are you surprised? Like, it's
No.
been happening so slowly. And for a party that's like, it's almost like they're testing the waters. Like, oh, let's run a guy that can't walk and he can't talk and he can't speak and he thinks he's seeing the Easter Bunny everywhere. And then after that, okay, that seems okay. Now we're going to run a campaign and we're not going to talk to anybody. We're not going to do press conference. I mean, it's just slowly getting worse. And it's stuff they used to do behind the scenes, probably cheating. And now they're like, hey, we're kind of emboldened. We can do whatever we want.
There was a story yesterday, Axios actually had it, and it was about how the Kamala Harris campaign, they were taking news stories and then changing the headlines
Yeah, I saw that.
to make it look good for her, and then using it. They were paying to have them put back on Google. And there's one news outlet that's talking about filing a lawsuit against her and Google for doing this. And the Guardian said that when they learned about it, they did not know about it. And CNN, the others, like, well, we didn't even know about it. But it's like everything is fake about this. Everything is absolutely fake about this campaign.
Did you see those? I mean, some of those pictures at the rallies that are AI, and then the reflection on the planes.
Yeah, I know.
There's like, we look at the reflection on the plane, and there aren't any people in it. And then
if you were to write a movie, and the purpose of the movie was to demonstrate how easily manipulated people are.
That's right.
And you are going to take what has traditionally been this presidential contest about ideas and a process and just decide we're going to completely do away with all that and just tell people, here's who you're going to vote for. We're not going to tell you why, just because they're good and they're bad, and see if we can pull it off. This is what the story would look like.
Yeah. And people always ask me too, how do you fight corruption? How do you do it in the courts and in the political process? Well, traditionally the person or the people that would hold these, the politicians running for office, the accountability mechanism was the press. And so then you had the media asking the questions and that kind of thing. So you have no one to hold them accountable except for the people running against them. And thank goodness you have, people that want to get the arena and find them. But I mean, they have a tough job trying to get around the media. I mean, thank goodness you have talk radio and, social media, thank goodness. But I mean, what a challenge to be in their shoes. Like, how are we going to get around, the media propaganda campaign?
Back to, unfortunately, some of these people are speaking out. They're blowing the whistle on this stuff. And, we look at a younger generation, and there was a new study that showed, it was commissioned by Newsweek, a majority of Gen Zers say that they will vote based off whomever the celebrity of their choice tells them to vote for. This 27 and under, a majority of them.
Wow.
Specifically, I think it was 40-some% said whoever Taylor Swift tells me to vote for, I will. You're talking about millions and millions of, let's just be honest, stupid people. And it was like 50% or 50+% said whomever Beyonce tells me to vote for. Yeah. Right. Well, and the school system to teach you how to think, not to, it should go without saying, but it doesn't. But some of these but what we fail to realize is that behind that generation is another one, and almost every generation is different. And I think at some point, and this is what I'm hoping, even on a non-political scale, that all of that, it will eventually become the thing to not be on social media. Social media will be like, what the older people do. That, being an influencer, that's old, but it'll be cool to like, it's none of your business what I think. It's none of your, that we'll get back to that. And when I see some of these influencers that aren't necessarily, these aren't necessarily Trump supporters, but they're like, they're trying to get me to say what they want for money. And just so you know, this is happening. And I think that's refreshing that we're seeing more of that instead of these people that will just basically be prostitutes, political prostitutes, and take money in exchange for going out there and pretending like they like Kamala Harris.
Yeah. I mean, and one thing that will definitely help Trump is that something that can break through the lies is the truth of what's been happening to him. So the visual of him getting shot, I mean, there's nothing you could say because that was all done, and you see the video behind Trump now of the guy like walking around on the roof. And I mean, if you're 18, 19, 20, be like, I mean, I'd be able to see that kid over there walking, getting ready to shoot that. I mean, so things, luckily that happened, live where kids could see that and young people could see that. And you see that and you're like, what is wrong? What is going on here? It looks like the government's trying to, shut Trump down.
Kudos to the sharp ears of our listeners, a number of them texting into the Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. And I wondered, I wondered if any would catch this, and numerous people did. This influencer who went to, I think it was Instagram, talking about how because she's influential, she's got a lot of followers, how the Democrats, Kamala Harris campaign, offering to pay her money to pretend to be a supporter of hers, and there's an NDA attached to it. And so numerous people, I thought those were called hush money. I thought, well, of course, that's it. But once again,
that's right.
Here we go. The whole reason that Donald Trump should be in prison is because he paid hush money. It was an NDA, but it wasn't called an NDA whenever the news reported it on Donald Trump. It was hush money all of a sudden. It was hush money when Kamala Harris and Democrats were talking about. So here they're trying to pay hush money to influencers in order to keep their mouths shut about the fact that they are paying them to pretend to support them. They're paying up to $20,000 to celebrities to come to the DNC. Celebrities and influencers, $20,000. I'm telling you, there is nothing that is real about these people or this political party. More with Christy Fulnecki next. I'm Nick Reed. Got none other than Christy Fulnecki in studio with us this morning. Let's see, what was I gonna... Okay, all right. So, little Joe Biden audio. Sorry, I was checking through.
Yeah, is he still president?
Yeah, I don't really know. No one seems to know, which is very helpful. Yeah. So this is just
to the curb.
this is fun audio. This is I don't even know where this was, but this is one of those scenarios where he's sort of mumbling, and then for some reason, it's like, remember maybe when we were kids and or even younger than that, when the TV, there was the volume knob, and then the little kid would walk up and just turn it all, and it would go real loud all of a sudden. And this is one of those moments with Joe Biden where he's sort of talking quiet, mumbling, and then all of a sudden he starts yelling.
Keep everything we said. We spent 17. It's a true story. Said yes, in one word, possibilities. We believe anything's possible in America. Anything we set our mind to is possible. We are the land of possibilities. That's who we are.
Okay, all right, scale back. And I did not enhance the volume at the end of that. That was all him. At least he got the word out. Now, that's the story that has been fact-checked where he claimed he traveled all these miles, which has been fact-checked 1,000 times. It's not true. But he says, he asked me what the whatever is, and I told, but remember he told this story once before, and it was gibberish that came out of his mouth?
Well,
He's told, you remember? He's like, and I told him, how's it for bird of her? So, but this time he actually...
It's the Muppets.
I think he probably... He got the... maybe...
Muppets.
Because he got the...
two guys on
or the Swedish chef. The... So they walk back into the kitchen at the White House, and he's throwing flour around. Like old Joe's in the flour sack again.
as a president.
Oh, Lord almighty. We got another traffic update. We went long the previous segment. Another traffic update, and then we got more Joe Biden audio coming up. We were looking for the audio of Biden telling that story some time ago, but instead gibberish came out of his mouth. But there's just so much audio saved that begins with Biden, either Biden claiming or Biden gibberish.
See, I'm looking in my folder, and I've got Biden confused.
Oh, okay.
Every day.
Here's Biden, and he was talking to reporters, and this is the normal where he's supposed to be leaving, and reporters start shouting questions at him, and you can hear his aides like, "Okay, thank you, everyone, get out!" Like desperately trying to get him out, and then he's asked about the failing economy.
Yes. Shh. I'm not going to answer your question. I'm talking to them first, and the audience first, okay? Yes, sir.
Now that's his people. Thank you so much. Thank you. Everyone leave.
The U.S. inflation, Mr. President. Yes. I told you we're going to have a soft landing. We're going to have a soft landing. My policies are working. Start writing that way, okay? And Mr. President,
Shout as he goes out. I think what's funny in that, and it's not uncommon, it's happened before. He says, "No, I'm going to answer some questions," and that's when his people start. All right, everyone, it's time to get.
I think I want to start talking.
But that's not helpful to Kamala, because here he's being asked about the economy, and he's like, "It's working. What I'm doing's working." It's like that is
soft landing. Is that what
yeah, it's supposed to be. Yeah, that was a term that was used where they started acknowledging that things weren't going well, but don't worry, it'll be like a soft landing. They're trying to make it's going to be okay. Don't worry, everything's fine.
section you hit the depression?
You're overthinking it. You're overthinking it. You're just not supposed to worry about it. It's all good. It's all okay.
I'll describe it on, bread and what she says,
costs more.
Food and she said, very articulate when you're talking about inflation. Yeah, that's right.
I think even writing children's books would be a bit complicated for her.
That's right. There's that Magic School Bus series that I think that she would have done well at. Although I think those are chapter books, so I don't know if she could do that.
We are just...
Well, you know what? You know what would be interesting? So how many days is it that she hasn't... What day are we on?
25 that she still has refused to...
I thought it was more than that.
I think 25 or 26.
She goes the whole time and she doesn't.
Well, they say so. Her and Biden are making an appearance today, and then she is. I think she said next week she will unveil her economic policies, and I can tell you what they're going to be. That there are prices that are too high, but it's not our fault. It's conspiracy between all the business owners, evil corporations, evil businesses. And again, in order to believe that, you have to believe that every single business in this country is part of that conspiracy. It's not like there's one company in one part. The entire country is dealing with this. And so this is typical for people that are in positions of power when there's no accountability. They create scenarios that jack things up, and then they blame the victims. Yeah, right. Because we're all victims, including people who run businesses. They are victimized by this as well. So what do? They point the finger and blame at them, because that's what leadership does. Yeah. Leadership blames the victim. Christy Fulnecki, thank you as always. Great pleasure. Glad you had a good time visiting your daughter out there in D.C. We do have Author of the Week coming up in the upcoming hour. Yeah. I have 10 more seconds if you wanted to chant it a few times.
USA.
Okay. I'm past it now. Okay. ABC book sponsoring our Author of the Week coming up in the next hour. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Tomorrow morning, broadcasting live from Scramblers, sponsored by Custom Shade Window Tinting, powered by 3M Window Film. My name is Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. We're talking once again about how there is nothing authentic about the Kamala Harris campaign. She didn't have to run for the nomination, so she was just handed it. Did not earn it. Not a single person voted for her for that. The policy positions that every major policy position, and she's not even going out there herself and saying she switched her position, whether it's fracking or health insurance or illegal immigration, free health insurance for illegal immigration, all these different issues. She's sending surrogates out to do it for her. Of course, the media is campaigning for her. Increasingly, you have these influencers that are revealing they are getting communications from the Harris-Walz campaign that is offering to pay them money to pretend to be Harris supporters, and they also have to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, which we were told is called hush money by the media for the past 2 years and by the Democrats. Just everything is fake. The phone call from the Obamas to Kamala telling them that they were going to support her. The phone call from Kamala to Tim Walz. It's just all so fake. And during the news, as Christy Fulnecki was making her way out, she talked about how she finds it very annoying that whenever Kamala and Tim Walz, at a couple of the events they've been at, how they look up at the sky while they're waving. The reason they're doing that is once again, it's all fake. It is to present the illusion that there is like this massive stadium of people. And of course, what do you have in a stadium? You have different levels and different tiers, and that they are looking way, way in the distance and way up in the air, and that's what they're waving to. So they're waving at nobody. Oftentimes they're just looking up at the ceiling, or if they happen to be outside. I don't know that they've done maybe one outdoor event, but it's all to create this illusion that there is a Trump-style crowd there, and that it is some arena or stadium filled with tens of thousands of people, maybe over 100,000 people, and it's like 3/4 of a mile away, up in the 8th level. They're waving to those people up there. So anytime you see them doing it, that's what it's about. Because again, everything about these people is fake. Donald Trump, of course, on the other hand, and some would argue to his detriment, is the exact opposite. He will say what he's thinking. He doesn't care whether you like it or not. He is so the opposite of fake. Even many of his own supporters are like, maybe you ought to just rein it in and listen. Everyone, even the most genuine person in the world understands that there's certain things sometimes you don't say just because you're thinking. Not with Trump. He really is the exact opposite of Kamala Harris. All manufactured, all fake, no thoughts of her own. You don't know what she's thinking. Donald Trump out there fully, completely transparent and unvarnished. I mention that because coming up, we're going to get news, traffic, weather. Our author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, has written a book largely on that, the Trump personality, this sort of crazy madness, and how it compares with specifically one other president in history and what it says about him. So that coming up in moments. First, the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. A heat advisory is in effect from noon until 9 p.m. for the entire listening area. Today we do have a chance for showers throughout the day, but otherwise mostly sunny skies with a high near 95. Heat index values as high as 102. Tonight, 60% chance of showers with a low around 71. For Friday, sunny with a high near 94. And on Saturday, sunny with a high near 90.
And don't forget KSGF.com. You can sign up for Godfather's Pizza Party with the app on Friday. If you have your push notifications on, you will get the heads up on a deal that is good for that evening from the area, the 4 area store Godfather locations, the stores, Ozark, Nixa, Battlefield, and Springfield. Sometimes it's free delivery. Sometimes it's a free dessert pizza. It just varies from Friday to Friday, so you will get that. And then you can also go ahead and the Ozark's half-price deal, local for less, half-price deal on PBR Thunder Days, Friday, August 30th, is the event that the tickets are for. They're $50 tickets. You can get them for $25 right now at KSGF.com. They are section DD, rows 12 through 15. Author of the week next. I'm Nick Reed. Fields Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. It's Thursday, which means it's Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Our author today, Gretchen Wollert, farmer, rancher, entrepreneur, teacher by day, and a historian and author by night, holding a degree in English and history. And the book is The Magic and Mayhem of Donald Trump. And yesterday I was talking about having you on, and I was saying, well, the timing of this is just great. And then I thought, well, I suppose any time is a good time to talk about this because Trump's personality, the way that it is, and the fact that it is unconventional, the way that he handles people, the press, to the chagrin of some and to the praise of others. And what I found was interesting is that you spent 4 years of research on this, and you you look at the similarities between Trump and Lincoln, which I think a lot of people, especially those who hate Trump, would recoil at that. How dare you? But my question as we start here is, was that your initial approach, or was it an evaluation of Trump and then you just began to see these similarities organically appear, and then that's the direction that you went?
Well, it started with the 2016 election, and I saw similarities with Donald Trump. First of all, I realized that, hey, this is the most unusual candidate. And that's a part of his magic and mayhem. How incredible is it to have a presidential candidate active for this many years? He's of course running for not really a second term. Donald Trump is running for a second first term because of all of the last administration undoing so much. But in 2016, I actually went into hunting for those similarities after I saw just a few of the ways Trump and Lincoln were alike. It began with things like they won, of course, with less than half the popular vote. That's how Lincoln won his 1860 election. Very tall men, very unusual look. Who does not see a silhouette of Abraham Lincoln and of Donald Trump and doesn't immediately know who it is? Nobody else in the world is like that. They had 10-year-old sons in the White House, and then I just began digging deeper, and it took me over 3 years of research and then a year to finally write the first book, Born to Fight Lincoln and Trump. Hundreds of similarities, and not just those outside similarities, but also down deep in their personalities, their upbringings, believe it or not. So many similarities, and especially the last chapter with the divided nation in which we are today. You know, Abraham Lincoln was also the most hated and at the same time the most loved president during his time. And it began there. And you know, Donald Trump is absolutely the leader for the time in fighting for the America that we want to continue, as opposed to the America that the liberal radical left is leading us down the path toward.
You mentioned some of those initial similarities you noticed, and some of them were, the circumstances surrounding, and some might be considered more, fun facts, if you will. But then you said as you delve deeper, you noticed personality traits and backgrounds that some might see as more meaningful in terms of their approach to the presidency and to challenges. What were some of those similarities?
Well, and I take it by chapter, and it was so amazing to me how much I thought I knew a lot about Abraham Lincoln as a historian, and yet digging down deep into his history, so many things. Abraham Lincoln had a deep faith, but he wasn't church-going. He was not phony. He went through a rebellious period in his life. Also, both men are so incredibly approachable. You know, Donald Trump is one of the most approachable billionaires in the world today. Abraham Lincoln and Donald Trump both used very simple, plain language. You know, how simple is Donald Trump's term fake news? And Abraham Lincoln, absolutely, whenever he spoke, he wanted to make sure it was as simple as possible and everybody knew exactly what he was talking about. How they both deal in honesty. They're both promise keepers. They're both, whenever Lincoln talked, what he thought, said, and did were all the same thing. He was one person. That's a very honest, transparent way to be. And that's exactly how Donald Trump is. Deep things like that, their leadership styles. They came from strong families with rules and with a work ethic, incredible self-confidence, Abraham Lincoln and Donald Trump, as well as you would be interested to hear that that we know Donald Trump is arrogant and one would think that he believes in no power higher than himself, but he does. But Abraham Lincoln also, he had quite the ambition and an arrogance to him that would rival Donald Trump. The one thing about Abraham Lincoln is he hid it because humility worked better for him than any type of arrogance and ambition. So that, so many in-depth similarities, not just those fun facts, but there are a lot of fun facts. So
we're talking with our author of the week, Gretchen Wollert. The book is The Magic and Mayhem of Donald Trump. You talked about the similarity of the honesty approach, and I think like a lot of people that at least are intellectually curious, you try to sort of gauge and figure out the very things that I think sent you on this mission, kind of trying to figure out Trump. And it struck me one day, and I'm just curious your thoughts on this, and if it lines up with your assessment of the honesty component, particularly when talking with the public. It struck me one day that part of what critics of Donald Trump pounce on is the things that he will say that, to me, oftentimes might normally occur in a closed meeting. Like, let's say you've got the president, advisors, a normal president, and they're discussing some sort of issue. They're spitballing things. There's no idea is a bad idea, and they're just openly talking like adults. But then, of course, okay, now we've got to sanitize this for the public version. Trump treats, in my assessment, the American people like the people in the boardroom. That the conversations that he has and the way that he will sometimes just throw out a thought or a statement, it is because he doesn't censor himself based on the audience. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. One thing Donald Trump is what he thinks he says. He does not have a filter from his mind to his mouth. Actually, he really does. If you only knew what he does not say, we think he speaks everything that's in his head, but he does not. He has political savvy to him in working with the reelection. He is actually pulling an Abraham Lincoln in, moderating with some issues. I believe the abortion issue today is so similar to the slavery issue of Abraham Lincoln, and he absolutely had to. Abraham Lincoln was diehard anti-slavery. He was never abolitionist, but he got very close. But then he had to moderate prior to the 1860 election because they wanted a candidate, not an abolitionist candidate like Seward was. And that's why they chose Abraham Lincoln, because he did moderate himself. He was silent, and he was elected president because of that, as well as, some of the divided nation issues and the issues with the Democrats. And today we've got issues with the Democrats. Who'd have thought the Republicans would be as united as they were after being so divided during the primary. But yeah, my new book, The Magic and Mayhem, a part of that mayhem is Donald Trump says things that, like, we're in the boardroom with him. And he treats us honestly. That's something that people actually believe is magic, but it goes both ways. He also uses that truthful hyperbole. He says things are the best, the biggest, the most beautiful, and ordinary people like us get it. It's promotion. It's a way to draw others into a vision. He's done that his whole life, and it's partly a New York thing, but we get it. But, of course, his political enemies just take it as he just lies, nothing but lies. And, speaking about being in the boardroom, how about hearing kind of that boardroom talk he had with Elon Musk the other night?
Right. Yeah, and, that's some of the critics, or those who, I wouldn't even say critics, I understand what they're doing. They are trying to capitalize off of anything they can in order to further their grip on power. But there are a lot of these Americans that they can't get over his personality. They say, well, I really like Trump, but I wish he wouldn't do this. And I get that, but at some point, I'm saying America needs to grow up a little bit. There is too much at stake to be concerning ourselves over personality at this point. We're sort of at war with destiny, and I don't mean politically against Kamala Harris or anything, but just the things that we're facing as a world right now, potentially World War III, the Middle East. We've got all these economic problems, these crime problems. And it's like, put on your big boy pants, get over the fact that sometimes he says things that you find unappealing. We have to grow up and get past that. And so sometimes I think it isn't so much about Trump, but more about a detriment of our inability to stop requiring everything to be wonderful and perfect and digested in a way that isn't going to ruffle my feathers. And I think that's just something that we face right now.
I definitely agree. It comes to mind, having a background in literature as well. Ignorance is bliss. Too many
Yes.
people just don't want to know. They're thinking it's going to go on like it has been, but they need to understand history, coming at it from a historian. Too many people do not realize that our nation has been at a juncture like this before, and that was prior to just right before the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln is the one that the Democrats wanted to get rid of, and they fought a war to try to do it. Of course, he stood up and he fought, and he absolutely, defeated the South and then unified the nation. But we have been here before, and it is after this election, it will either be socialism or making America great again. And people need to understand that it's that critical juncture.
Right.
And if they're wondering what redeeming qualities Donald Trump has, if they are in that, his personality just gets me, that's why I'm not going to vote for him, they need to read The Magic and Mayhem of Donald Trump, because they will see that he has that moral core. He has those values. He has that strength. He has that leadership. And it's there. They need to understand why he does what he does and see a little more clearly the man behind that, the real man behind what they see in the news. They say he's the worst president in American history and he should be locked up forever for crimes against society. And then there are others that believe he is absolutely the savior of the nation and worthy of sainthood. Well, there's a magic place in the middle. And I reveal that in the book, and they need to get it. Magic and Mayhem of Donald Trump, and be assured that he is absolutely worthy of your vote November 5th.
Well, and I would note just the side-by-side comparison that so often we are told that somebody, Kamala Harris, I think, is a great example, just wonderful and an amazing individual. But then you hear behind the scenes from people who actually work with her how toxic, and you heard a lot of this with Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden as well. Those stories started leaking out that the presentation that we're given about how wonderful and kind and caring they are, that's not the reality. And it's interesting that the opposite occurs with Trump. He's presented as this horrible, awful person, but almost universally you hear from people who actually meet with him that he's just really genuinely a nice person. You hear people that meet with him that are everyday individuals, and one of the things that they say is they could tell that he just really cared. And that complete opposite scenario from what we're accustomed to, I think is pretty interesting. Our author of the week, Gretchen Wohlert, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, author of the week. The Magic and Mayhem of Donald Trump. Of course, you can get this and all our past author of the weeks. The interviews, hear the podcast. If you miss any of this one, of course, KSGF.com. And then at ABC Books, their own author of the week segment or section they have set up there for Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. That home loan step, as Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, will tell you, is very, very, very important when it comes to looking for new homes. And Emily Johnson, for your own sake, your time, has always recommended that, hey, make sure you know what you can get in terms of a home loan. Get that letter, get that qualification. And the reason that she advises that, as well as so many other things, is to make the process as smooth and as easy as possible for you. She goes through this all the time. I mean, she's in any given day, every single day, other than Christmas. I believe she said that is the one day of the year that is absolutely, no work-related stuff. But other than that, every day it's quite possible, and most days she is working on this stuff. So it's second nature to her, but she recognizes it isn't second nature to the rest of us. And so whether it is advising on first get that qualification letter before we start looking at homes to know what it is that you can even afford, or when it comes to maybe you need to sell your home, things that you need to do or you don't need to do in order to get it sold as quick as possible for as much as possible. That's what you get with Emily Johnson for all of your home buy needs, home selling needs. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. A heat advisory is in effect today from noon until 9 p.m. for the entire listening area. And today we do have a chance for showers throughout the day, but otherwise mostly sunny with a high near 95. Heat index values close to 102. Tonight, 60% chance of showers with a low around 71. For your Friday, sunny with a high near 94. And on Saturday, sunny with a high near 90.
Another Associated Press story that shows that the media continues to act as the mouthpiece for Hamas when it comes to the terrorist attack and continued terrorism against the Jewish people of Israel, and that is the following headline: as Gaza death toll passes 40,000, corpses are buried in yards, streets, and tiered graves. Now, where did this information come from? Came from Hamas. Look, it doesn't even matter what side, even if you weren't on the side of Hamas, or even, you are, whatever, it doesn't matter. You should, as a journalist, present independent verification. When you have two different sides battling it out that are in complete opposition, your stories should not be based off the premise of the storyline, the narrative of one of the two. Particularly when that one side's goal is the complete elimination of the other side. And when the numbers that they present are clearly utilized by the rest of the world, and people just as recently as a few days ago, Kamala Harris, in order to, portray Israel as somehow just kind of mailing it in and willy-nilly killing innocent civilians without really trying not to, because that's the presentation that she gives. There's always a caveat with the left, and that is, well, sure, they have a right to defend themselves, but, and then they craft this impossible bar in which the Israeli people must reach in order to defend themselves. But, they've got to minimize civilian casualties. Okay, what is that number then? You almost wish at some point Netanyahu or somebody from Israel would call the bluff and say, give us numbers. If you are going to continue to utilize the bully pulpit of the United Nations or the United States or, as a presidential candidate, Kamala Harris using her campaign, whatever the institution, and you are going to put up a standard in which you are requiring us to meet, you need to define that standard. It cannot be vague. We don't do that, at least, in any sort of real life scenario on any level, if we want meaningful results. If you want meaningful results, you give specifics. You give parameters. If you work for a company and you are talking about expansion or perhaps revenue, and you do projections, all right, in 6 months, our goal is this. Our goal for expenditures is this. Our goal for expenditures is, or for revenue is this. This is where we were this time last year. This is what our goal is 6 months from now and 1 year from now. You don't just say, well, make a lot of money. Well, what does that mean? You see, the brilliance, as dark and frankly evil as it is, of the Kamala Harris approach in saying, well, I support the right of Jews to defend themselves against, another Holocaust. But while defending themselves, they've got to make sure that they keep these casualties down to a minimum. If you don't define that number, you can always accuse Israel, no matter of how successful they are, of not hitting your standard because you haven't defined it. Well, get casualties down to this, not enough. Down to this, not enough. Down to this, not enough. What is the number then? If this is the standard. We saw this a lot in the lead up to, this is just a stark example, of the difference between these vague notions that allow the originator of the requirement to basically change it at any given moment versus having an actual standard. For years, when it came to Saddam Hussein and there was the Gulf War, and the Gulf War did not end with General Schwarzkopf and others in that tent out in the desert. What they signed was a ceasefire. It was not an end to the Gulf War. It was a ceasefire that was contingent upon some very specific actions by Saddam Hussein. And one of them was unfettered inspections by UN inspectors. Now, of course, he would violate it over and over and over again. I think the United Nations did like 23 or 26 resolutions that are saying shame on you. When it got to the point of, okay, are we going to do this thing? Are we going to hold Saddam Hussein accountable? Is the ceasefire that has been violated over and over and over again, are we going to hold him accountable? You had a lot of people saying, well, we should only do it as a last resort. Well, and you hear that all the time. Well, we should only do this as a last resort. Well, what is the last resort? If you don't define that, that can mean 80 different things to 80 different people. This isn't, by the way, this isn't left, right, Republican, or Democrat. This is just that, we have pulled back on critical thinking to such a degree that we allow ourselves to fall into these verbal elixirs of sorts, these siren songs of, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, because of course last resort, right? What does that suggest? Well, only if we have to. Well, in a case of war, for example, we don't want to do that unless we have to. So, yeah, last resort sounds good. But we don't say, but what is that last resort? What does that mean? One person's last resort could be, someone else's not last resort. Now, what Bush did, whether people want to agree with it or not, is he actually defined it. At one point, he said, Houdain Qusay Hussein, I think it was 48 hours. If this is it, you have 48 hours to surrender yourself. If you do not, then it's on. So that became the line, the last resort. It was identifiable. So everyone was on the same page. Everyone understood what it meant. And they didn't do it, and so then, the ceasefire was over. When you have Kamala Harris and the anti-Semitic supporters of hers that will rail on, of course, they don't care. You never hear them talk about Jewish civilians. You never, none of that. That's irrelevant to them. In fact, they deny that the victims of rape and the victims of a lot of that stuff were even actually victims. That was all just a conspiracy, a Jewish conspiracy. Didn't actually even happen. Then they pin upon them this non-specific requirement of keeping civilian casualties to a minimum without saying this is what a minimum is. Whether it is a number overall, whether it is a number by time frame, so many per week, or a number as a percentage. 5% of those killed, civilians, that's acceptable. Now, some people would argue, and by the way, I don't believe that this is a bad argument, that's silly. You can't define it like that. Well, then you cannot hold them to a requirement like that if you don't define it. Because it sets up this impossible scenario, which is meaningless, other than it gives the person who sets up the bogus standard the ultimate power and authority over the individuals that are trying to meet this phantom standard. Of course, then the audacity of Kamala Harris and the media to take the talking points from Hamas of 40,000. Oh, we've got so many people that are being slaughtered by the evil Jewish state of Israel that we're having to bury them in our gardens, in our yards. We're having to stack them. Any independent verification? No, the terrorists said that's it, so why shouldn't we believe them? They're very honest individuals, and they're very objective as well. I mean, they have no bias whatsoever. Now, at least the Associated Press, well into the story, acknowledged that the numbers came from the terrorist and that the terrorists admit that, those aren't all actually civilians. So they give a reference to that, but the headlines are what Kamala Harris and the Democrats and the media use, and that's why you have all of these anti-Semitic protesters and a segment of the population that just honestly wants to know the truth, erroneously believing the disinformation that Israel's out there slaughtering tens of thousands of innocent civilians. And it is because of the deliberate attempt to mislead on behalf of the terrorist organization Hamas. And if somebody has any other perspective that somehow explains this continued behavior, I'd be more than happy to hear it. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Wanted to read a review for you this morning about my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Donna wrote, Josh helped us with our insurance, and the roofing crew spent over an hour and a half on cleanup, making sure they had all of the nails out of the yard and our decks were clean of all debris. I highly recommend the Pyramid Roofing Company. And that is one thing that really does set the Pyramid Roofing Company aside from the rest. Now, most roofing companies, they actually make you sign some type of agreement before they actually start working with the insurance company. But the Pyramid Roofing Company, they do not do that. They understand that getting a new roof is not necessarily kind of a fun purchase. They get that it's stressful. You want to just get it over with. And they want to make that roofing process just as simple as possible. So if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company out for that free roof inspection, go ahead and give Josh a call today. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I mentioned this is the 3-year anniversary of Biden-Harris handing Afghanistan over to the Taliban and sacrificing numerous Americans and innocent civilians in the process of it, and then for good measure, droning a station wagon full of kids, bragging about taking out a terrorist, only 2 days later be like, oh, actually, we meant little kids. It's a good thing the world didn't hold the Biden administration to the same standard that old Kamala is trying to hold the Israelis to when it comes to innocent civilians. But I'm watching on this 3-year anniversary the footage of a parade of our military equipment on our military base, funded by hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars that have been acknowledged going to the Taliban at the direction of, this is freed up by the Biden administration, given to the Taliban. And you just think about, aside from what a humiliating failure, just the situation itself. You're talking about a bunch of largely disjointed, backwards thinking, oftentimes extremely uneducated terrorists that lived in the mountains, that went from being so fearful of the United States that, because of Trump, did not touch a single hair on the head of a U.S. troop. And this was because, infamously, Trump pulled up a phone and, he was face-to-face having this conversation with one of the top Taliban guys who didn't speak English, but he had a translator there, and Trump showing the coordinates of where his family, where his home was. And the translator did not want to translate what Trump was saying, which was, I will take you all out. If from this point on, any of our men or women are harmed over here. And from that moment until Biden came along, they complied because they felt he was serious. They went from that to now, just 3 years later, they are on full display of this victory over the United States with our equipment, our military base, parading it around. David and Goliath. You think about all of the monumental moments in history where you're talking about the single most powerful country in the history of mankind, and a handful of the human trash known as the Taliban that was spread out hiding in fear, where just because of a decision made by this administration turns into one of the greatest David and Goliath stories, with Goliath being the United States of America, thanks to Biden-Harris, and the Taliban, some of the most evil people to walk the planet, being David. And every year parading it around. And as if that weren't enough, of course, Biden's like, what can we do for Iran? Let's open up the money spigot for them, take the Houthis off the terror watch list, get Hamas the funding they need to carry out the terrorist attack on Israel. It's just, one brilliant move after another from this brain trust known as Biden-Harris. You think about it. And I know a lot of you hate Trump. Most of you who are listening don't, but there's some of you that do. You really think that the Taliban and that Iran, that Hamas, that Putin, that North Korea, all of these leaders that once Trump left began acting up once again, began going back to their old ways, that they are going to somehow, if Kamala Harris becomes president, that they're going to go back to behaving the way they were when Trump was president? Any honest person has to acknowledge, as much as they hate Trump, that the evil players in this world are just chomping at the bit for the United States to have Kamala Harris as president. This election is well beyond domestic implications. And anyone who wants to tell themselves that the evildoers in this world that take advantage of power vacuums, as we have seen over the last 3 years, suddenly won't if Kamala Harris is elected president, is beyond dangerously naive. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. A top medical fellowship for women has agreed to stop being racist and excluding white applicants after a complaint accused the program of being racially discriminatory in light of the Supreme Court decision outlawing racism. Do Not Harm, which is a nonprofit organization that serves as a watchdog group in the healthcare industry, filed the lawsuit in June on behalf of female students who met the criteria for a $20,000 award offered by the American Association of University of Women, but were excluded because they were white. Attorneys for both groups wrote in a joint stipulation on August 9th that the lawsuit would be dismissed after AAUW agreed to not consider any future applicants' race or ethnicity. In other words, not to be actively racist. Now, on one hand, this is seen as a victory because, okay, this is against the law. They were breaking the law, and they got caught, and so they're going to stop. The problem is that these lawsuits do not go forward, and none of these people are ever held accountable. We need to stop letting these people off the hook when they use racism in order to break the law. They need to be held accountable and stop this oopsie daisy, okay, we won't do it anymore, and then, okay, well, you're fine. Glenn Beck's next. Talk with you tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.